Uh, yes, 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 yes. Yes. Welcome, welcome again, people, to another stream, another podcast live stream here on the Chaos Rain Show. I am Chaos Rain here, and today's stream it's very much an important one. And today's stream, and as I'm looking at it, it's something to really look at and have a real analyzing look at a lot of things. Um, for y'all know that a lot of things has happened back in the last 50 or more years when it comes to a lot of communities, including Black folks, and we have a somewhat of a clear idea what has happened. But do we really know what really happened, or the players that helped contribute the problems that we see today? Should biggest question. But before I play the video and give my own take on this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the Chaos Range Show. And like always, the social media links to follow me are the following. You can follow me on Twitter at Chaos Range 7. You can also add me as a friend on Facebook, Eric Rain on Facebook. You can also join the Discord service of the Chaos Range Show as well. And please, guys, follow me on Rumble as well. Word on the street is what's going on with Rumble is I'm hearing that YouTube might be involved in playing. I'm not sure if it's a class action lawsuit. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm starting to hear floating around here. And for some reason, I'm not sure what's going on personally. And not saying I like it, what's going on, but really it has to be really questioned to really truly is Rumble really a competitor? Like people said it wasn't, but it looks like from what I'm hearing, it potentially could be. Because why all other outside forces are going hard attacking this platform here? I wonder. I just wonder. I'm just saying. And to me, I'm just gonna sit back and see what's gonna really happen. But other than that, join my Rumble page as well. CRain23 on Rumble. And make sure I'll type in a second. Also, become a member of the Chaos Rain Show as well. Membership always has perks. As I'm still growing the membership, like always, and will surely use your help if you become a member of the Chaos Rain Show as well. What else I'm missing here? I think that's pretty much it. And I'm glad you wrote that, Tevin. Let me post your thing here. I've been waiting for someone to make a topic on these so-called highly intelligent women breaking it down for us. Yeah, as I'm going to try the best I can to look at this overall, because this right here, if you notice, you have to scour the internet to find this. Now, I'm glad I listened to many other podcasters out here, and it actually gives more context of what really is going on here, what has happened, and what is the wave of the future, what's moving forward. So let's be fair and honest. We could say men have played a lot of part in this. Yeah, we could say that. But you ladies also play a part as well, and with one half and the other half, you make a whole. So, but before I start this festivities, I gotta do this, people. I gotta do this.
The sonic rings up out of it, and you.
All right. First super chat. Seven drops $10 super chat. Appreciate it, my brother. Thank you. Appreciate that. And as we go along, I will put the links as I run this tape. But no further ado, not sure we're gonna put there ain't gonna be no much commercials on all of this because I want this to be very important for people to really catch replay and have more understanding of what has been put out here. So no further ado, let's begin this. All right, let me wind it back a little bit. All right, here we go. Oh, and let me put the and like always, the goal we try to reach 50 more dollars on anything. So I'm not gonna post there, but I'll post it in the chat room. All right, let's begin, guys. Fair use, fair use. Enjoy. And you could tell the scenery is back in the 70s, as you could tell from the scenery, guys. Let's go.
The chaos reigns.
Greetings. I'm Maria Manis. Women have been fighting for equality, for freedom, for identity throughout most of American history, usually in the form of courageous individuals, courageous females. Then, as we've seen in a brief documentary just now, narrated by Mary McPhillips, they finally got together and in 1920 gained at last the vote. That was exactly 50 years ago. And exactly 100 years ago, there was the founding of the Young Women's Christian Association of New York. It is to commemorate both these events that we've gathered together this distinguished panel to discuss the tactics and goals of the whole women's liberation movement, to discuss the status of women in American society today, and to go into the future to see what will happen then. I now would like to introduce the panel. Jacqueline Wexler is president of Hunter College of the City University of New York. Charlotte Bunch Weeks is a visiting fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C., and where she is also very active in the women's liberation movement. Dr. Pauli Murray is a visiting professor of American civilization at Brandeis University. She is not visiting, she is a full professor. She was formerly a consultant to the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and is well known as a pioneer.
All right, as y'all witness and look for the first time, you're going to see a panel of a good plethora of European women and one sister, maybe two. And as you watch this, you want to pay close attention of what is being discussed here. And as you know, I'm not gonna speed up this. I'm gonna let it play through enough with commentary because when I notice when people speed up a lot of these videos, like you miss what's being said because people don't speak and talk fast. I like people to absorb what these people are saying, and I'm gonna run back what if certain things they said that might be had to be geared on. Let's go. Fair use.
In the field of human rights. Helen Southard, a psychologist, is director of the National Young Women's Christian Association's Resource Center on Women. And our studio audience include representatives of various women's lib organizations and also individuals working for the movement as a whole. Later in the program, we will invite questions from the floor. I suppose I should introduce myself. It's very simple. I'm a writer, a woman, and an old, long-time rebel. But to get the evening more or less started, I would like to ask the panel as a whole just what significance the vote, the women's suffrage has had on women's force politically and socially as a whole. Just what has it done in allowing women to vote to national policies and social development? Anybody like to pick that one up? Mrs. Wexler?
Well, I would think Dr. Murray might be much more knowledgeable in this kind of area. I suppose the thing I would like to say is that the vote came first, the possibility, the potential came first, and that was the great strike for freedom, not only for women, but I think another strike for freedom for the United States. The longer issue and the important one is as women learn to cast their votes as real individuals. That's true of any citizen. The right to vote is one thing. The knowledgeability, the insight, the particular kind of sensitive humanism with which each individual votes is in the end the crucial thing of whether a democracy shall be humanistic or not. And I think...
Oh, one other thing. As you know, back in the day, before, women didn't really... I forgot what year women voted. I think it was in the 60s, I believe, or late 50s, 60s. But as you know, when we talk about black men, particularly when European men, and some of the estrails of the groups, when slavery was eventually out the door, I think a couple of decades later, they let the men, the black man, vote because, like most men have respect for each other, regardless of their brutality. These group of men, European men, like I said, know that at the end of the day, anyone's going crucial, decisive decisions of who should be in certain positions of power, office, etc. It'd be better to have a man be the head to make those decisions. And a lot of European women, white women particularly, were not happy with that. Matter of fact, I think they had literatures and books wrote about it, so they made statements about you will let a N-word vote before your own woman, and the answer is yes, baby. Oh yes, because men today know that they have to use logic when making decisions. If you put women in certain scenarios, they're just going to go with their emotions and their best interests, and yeah, it gets messy. So let's keep going.
I think we perhaps are in that part of the century at this moment where the individual vote becomes important as the individual woman becomes more and more a humanistic person, or has a chance to be.
Dr. Murray? I was thinking that the vote came 50 years too late. It should have come in 1870 with the 15th Amendment rather than the 19th Amendment. The 50-year effort in between exhausted almost 2 generations. And I think after the 19th Amendment was adopted, you had a kind of exhaustion of the movement. And it took about another generation to begin to gather up steam again.
I think it is true that the vote came too late, more than 50 years too late, probably several hundred, if not 1,000 years too late in some perspectives. But I think more importantly for me to understand why the vote itself has not made a major impact on social policy in this country is to understand that the way that the country functions is not entirely in terms of the vote. And that I think the mistake that the women's movement made in the past, which is an understandable mistake from my study of that history, was as the movement became focused on the vote, many...
Before I continue, I see you wrote some, Tevin. I'm going to pull up. Rumble sued YouTube parent company Google for $1 billion over a loss of the ad revenue. That lawsuit was 3 years ago. Now it looks like they may merge as one of which is a horrible idea, but we'll see. Oh, So you're saying Rumble and YouTube are going to merge as one, Tevin? That's my question. I'll wait for the answer. Let's continue. Fair use, fair use.
Many of the other important issues that women's movement originally was discussing became lost in the drive for the vote. And in fact, the numerous questions about the family, numerous questions about the images of women in society, a number of other kinds of issues which are equally important to the question of the ballot vote in this country, questions about the economic structure, women's economic power, women's political power is much greater than the question of the vote. And it seems to me that that's what we have to begin to examine to see why the vote itself alone has not made any difference in this country. And I think is equally important to what we talk about for today's programs, that we can't look at the liberation of women as a single dimension. And that was the mistake that our sisters earlier had around the vote, in which we must avoid in our movement today, I think.
So that's very well said. I'm going to skip a bit and ask Dr. Murray. Of course, everyone has heard Representative Chisholm's remark that she was more
yes, 3 times yes.
Yes, discriminated against as a woman and as a black. Would you concur? And if so, would you care to?
Okay. It's possible, but it's being discussed behind closed doors, like I said one time. Yeah, I think right now with Rumble, what they trying to do, and I heard F&F talk about this today on their little podcast about they're hanging up in regards to trying to make money on YouTube per se, and they're going to support Rumble all the way through, including establishing what they call logos and other parent company of Rumble. Right now, I look at it as this, and I'm gonna tell you a little secret, Tevin. Word on the street is the owner, I think his name is Chris P, the guy from Canada, is allowing a lot of pressure right now with his platform. And I mean a lot of pressure is because, and guys, we're gonna continue with the tape in a second. I just want to knock this out of the way. The pressure he's facing right now is a lot of outside countries are banning anybody watching or using the Rumble app to watch their alternate message. I think it's something like Russia and some other countries outside banning Rumble because of the platforms allowing certain characters to put out their message, not propaganda, but message. And they don't want that circulate throughout alternate media. So this guy is already, in the gutter right now, or in the toilet, in regards to who could watch the platform Rumble, which other countries still accept because there's an app and they follow the rules nonetheless. But at the end of the day, like any parent company, YouTube is, be honest with you right now, with YouTube, where YouTube's playing right now, they have some form of competition, but the competition is not enough to really be a threatening. Now, mind you, if YouTube is going to buy anything, their best bet is to buy TikTok. And here's why. TikTok, for the last 2 years, racked up over 1 billion users. And everything is in regards to billions within an span of close to 2 years. During the lockdown, even after lockdown, they gross over 2 billion followers. So it would be the best interest for YouTube, instead of messing with Rumble, because Rumble is nowhere close to this, unfortunately. And how I know, because I have Rumble, and right now there's no rules really tighten up about certain things in Rumble at this time, that their best focus right now, and mind you, YouTube already came up with the little lawsuit rate. One of the ladies stepped down. I think her name was a Jewish lady, stepped down months ago of this year, I believe. Yeah, this year, because of the false information they put on that platform in regards to going overseas. At the end of the day, YouTube got better things to do. They could invest to try, maybe look into, see if they could work to buy out Rumble, but really, truly, Rumble's nowhere near competing with YouTube at any time soon. Their best attention, or their best bet for attention, is to go straight to the real competitor, which is TikTok. Because TikTok, that's where all the information can put out. And you gotta keep in mind, this is an election year, so we should see. All right, let's keep going, guys. Sorry about that. Fair use, fair use.
Because a lot of people say, now, what is really the analogy between the women's and the black revolution? Let's go into that for a while.
You know, I'm really a snob, and I like uppercase. So I'm going to use the term Negro because I can be sure that that's uppercase. If I use the term black, it may be lowercase.
Thank you. For once, it's clarified.
For the youngsters who like black, I use the two terms interchangeably. Shirley Chisholm is right. Let me say that the model for the treatment of minority groups and oppressed groups in history has been the treatment of women. I think the position of a Negro woman is even more depressed than the addition of sex discrimination and race discrimination. I think it is the conjunction of these two which aggravates the situation. The dominant white male who may be afflicted with racism and or sexism, if clobbered over the head, may yield a little bit on race, and if clobbered a little more, may yield a little bit on sex. But when he finds the two embodied in the same body, it's a little more than he can take. And I think this is what Shirley Chisholm meant. It is certainly what I have experienced.
Speaking of the Negro.
So let's look at that. What the lady said. So in her mind, the dominant male has to be dominated for control. That's what I got of it. I don't know about y'all. And another thing, even with racism and sexism and all this nonsense, right? She is a intelligentsia, and she doesn't want to fall under labels of Negro or color. So if you don't fall under those labels, then what are you then? Because that's the characteristics, labels that was given to you in this country called America. Now, if you want to call yourself beige, you could do that. But really, when you're around the majority population of people, they're going to look at you and call you accordingly. And you can't really do much enough to stop that. Let's be clear. But, you know, a lot of women like her, and mind, she is one of the few intelligent Black women that's on this panel that is looks like agreeing of, you know, the directions of how women are moving in this country. But let's listen to more. Fair use.
So, man's attitude towards the Negro woman. You may have followed this a slight discussion in Sesame Street.
And she does that point. Negro are oppressed, and if you're oppressed, that means you're going to do everything you can to get out of oppression. When you agree on that, I mean, you'll be, you know, doing uncharacteristic things. You do some little strange little piece of change. You feel me? Let's keep listening. Fair use.
That marvelous program and the objections that it was really putting women back in the old role of, particularly from the Negro couple, of the housewife while the man was the doer. And the answer was, I understand, that this was purposely intended to give the Negro male a sense of pride and accomplishment that he sorely lacked. In other words, to restore his ego.
So that he can imitate the male chauvinism of the white wife.
No, I think that's too simple. I really do think that's too simple. I was interested that you made a distinction which I have not heard Mrs. Chisholm make.
And trust me, knowing Black women said they don't like that, but they sure damn like it. Stop it. Fair use.
For that, it is the particular nexus of the Negro discrimination and the woman discrimination in the Negro woman, which you are speaking to. I've never quite heard Mrs. Chisholm put it that way. And
she's a politician.
She's a politician. I certainly cannot, in any real empathetic way, understand your particular position, but I have always been a little bit put off by the analogy. My own personal experience is not at all that I have been victimized by that kind of discrimination, though my own personal evolution may be somewhat atypical. But I think there may be an inference in this question that is coming to the fore now about the Negro or the Black male and his reaction particularly to the Negro female. Is it not at least worth considering that because our economic system as it has evolved within a narrow frame, my God, all too narrow frame of opportunity for black, white or black, for black woman or man, that economy has allowed a kind of matriarchal image to evolve, which has become which has kind of turned off the male who feels then inferior. And I have some of the same concerns about some of the tone of the present women's lib thing, which, at the risk of being reactionary, sounds to me a little bit like new chauvinism, which is neo-male in the name of female.
Let's Let's examine this question of the matriarchal stereotype.
Before she goes into that, I gotta run the commercial. Y'all know what the deal is. Y'all know what. Oh, that got me. Oh, I don't got. Wait, I gotcha. All right, you know what it is. Run this.
I want my money.
I told you.
Where is my money?
Betty, bring me everyone.
I need my money. I need my money.
What do you mean everyone?
Everyone, make sure you guys support the channel. Super chat, hit the super chat or cash app. And Tim writes, hold on, I can't read it. 1,000 years ago in ancient Greece, women were allowed to vote and take part in political affairs. But their rights was stripped from them when a naming of the capital Athena after a goddess Athena. Interesting. Something to examine. Something to really examine. And he also writes, okay. They're gaining their rights to vote started in 1926. And then 1956, all women in Greece can vote despite their status. Okay. Oh, you're talking about America, Greece. I don't know if you're talking about, or because remember, when Marcus Garvey was in America, Tevin, he did allow Black women to not only work with the NOA, but they also had a way. They also could vote as well. And because of his movement back in the early 20th century, oh, it's really Greece. Okay, all right, Greece, cool. A lot of white or European women got envious because they see these Negroes working together, including women had certain more leaderies with their men, and a lot of non-Blacks did not like that. So, it's food for thought. All right, let's keep going, guys.
It is, in fact, a stereotype. 3/4 of all Negro families are intact male-female families. It is true that the Negro male grows up in a hostile environment, which makes his survival of greater risk than any of the other groups, the Black woman or Negro woman or the white woman or the white male. Consequently, you have a very aggravated sex imbalance in terms of the relation, the numerical relation between the sexes. This means that there are more Negro women who are heads of families and the sole economic support of their families, more widows, more single women, women who have to support themselves and sometimes older relatives. This, in turn, means that Negro mothers know that their daughters more than likely must be self-supporting, and therefore encourage their daughters to get an education. Now, the inordinate burden, economic burden, which the Negro woman carries, means that she must compete for job opportunities. And if she does not receive the same opportunities as any other person, irrespective of race or sex, children are denied an opportunity proportionately, and elderly dependents are denied. I do not go for the matriarchal stereotype. I will go you one further. I often tell my Black brothers who are militants, we all move together or we don't move.
On that note, which is vitally important, we have to make a short break. And after a brief pause, we'll continue our discussion.
So, well, she did admit, why women work, unfortunately.
We are going.
And the funny thing about that is that was this all structure for the so-called stabilization of the Black household / Black family, to know saying that if you're a man and you had less than a was it 8th grade or 6th grade education, you were just made to be a worker. And let's be honest, guys. There were certain men in certain areas in America back then. Some did get education, you know. Not every well, a good portion might not went and go far to schooling. Some of them might have went to trade school and all that stuff. Because as men, we more good at interacting, dealing with things, building things, and touching things. We're not into too much of the books per se, unless is for better thought and gain something of enlightenment. But none of that. Most men, even back then and now, you were more trained to be a doer. That's what I will leave out for y'all. All right, let's keep going.
Back later into this whole business of stereotypes. But now, what I think we should discuss is something very factual and present to jobs, careers, education. And I'd like to ask Mrs. Southard whether indeed it is not true that to a certain extent we have slipped in the last 20 years in the amount of representation in jobs and in careers, certainly in the upper levels.
Well, I think the figures would very definitely corroborate that. I think there definitely has been a slipping in the number of women who are going on, for instance, for graduate degrees. I think at all levels of education there is a slipping back. So I think that one of the jobs of the present day is to give some motivation to young people so that they can see some of the options other than copping out in one way or another. I think people, if they have the opportunities, unless they're motivated, they're not going to take advantage of them. And somehow or other, the picture of women that has been given to young people in their textbooks, in all the little things that have gone on, even at the kindergarten level, people just don't see, as we say psychologically, models of people that are doing any of the things that make it seem exciting to go on to higher levels.
Well, is that not as much fault of the home as education?
I think it's very definitely the fault of the home. I think we need much more work, and that's why one of the things like the YWCA is trying to do is to meet with groups of women, young women who are going to be parents. I think if people take on the obligation of having children today, we're much more aware of the responsibility. It isn't only the physical care of the child, it isn't only the emotional care. We've talked a lot about that, but it is the having children come into the world realizing what it means to be a little girl or a little boy in our society. So it definitely is a large part of the function of the home. But if I could add quickly, I don't think a child has to be in the home 24 hours a day in order to get this thing that I'm speaking of. And I think our whole society needs 24-hour daycare, so that not that every child should be away for 24 hours, but so that children can supplement the kind of education and upbringing that the home provides.
Well,
So if the child's going to be in a so-called lockdown structure institution like a daycare for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for a day, or whatever, right? Where will be time for the child to be interacting with both mother and father? Where there'll be time for that? That's my biggest question. Because we all know even the purpose of daycare itself was designed, let's keep it real, to get the mother away from just raising the child for the first 5 or 6 years of life. And if the mother works, the father works, that means someone else is grooming your child. A lot of people don't really think of that, but it is type of form of grooming. So that means your child is not yours if you're in institutions that you don't supervise or control. Let that sink in, gentlemen and ladies. And mind, this is in the 70s. So let's keep going. Fair use, fair use.
I'm going to go into that in depth shortly, but I'd just like to go into the whole business of you talk about motivation of the young women. I keep constantly hearing, as some of you may, that even in the most radical leftist groups, the girls are the sort of the servants or the submissive leaflet carriers and so forth. Do they really want to work in the job market? They, of course, is a big term, but you see an awful lot of young people are the girls all that anxious to achieve a certain work excellence?
Well, one of the things I think we have to establish at the beginning of any discussion, whether it be of men or of women, is that one cannot generalize about human beings. And I think there are some girls who are desperately eager to go on and be somebody, educationally, professionally. And I think there are others who are quite happy to be shackled, to be dependent, to have no other goal in life other than to be a sex object.
Yeah, but now, come on, why do you have to say shackled when you...
Now, you know, and she gonna respond to that a lot of women now, even back then that you see that's up on that panel, they view being, I guess, a wife as prisoners of war. And not only that, but to sit there, pursue every endeavors, and not be able to pursue it, you're holding them back and making them feel depressed that they can't be out here in the world working 40 or more hours a week and attending some other corporation that makes the corporation actually rich, while you maybe getting your check, your family's not really getting to know establish riches itself. Working for somebody, especially a woman, you give all your time and energy to this job, and where are you gonna have left over after a job? And these are questions that a lot of ladies are not really ready to tackle and have. So let's hear the back and forth with this one. All right, let's go. Fairies.
say dependent. If your whole first notion, if your first cry is one for options and for a wide range of models and options to be given to young women, then I'm totally with you. I want to take that, curve if it's looked like this and been only one kind of role, and I want to stretch it way out, so that women of all ages have both the opportunity psychically and situationally to make choices within a very wide range. But what really puts me off is the new kind of zealotry, which in trying to bring the model out is really trying to make everybody have massive guilt feelings if they don't go over to this narrow straight.
I'd like to go back. It may be a matter of semantics, but it seems to me that when one is utterly and completely dependent upon another person, more or less through one's life, one does carry shackles in my vocabulary. But this does not mean that we don't all need people at some stages in our life, or that we're going to be absolutely able to do everything on our own. But I think we have to bring up children to be free in this world, to be able to take responsibility and make decisions for themselves. And in the process, they need to come very close in human relationships, and some of them are dependent relationships. So I think it's a semantic thing.
I think we're all feeling very frustrated.
I think we could.
And another thing, let's even discuss, besides the shackle thing or the matriarchy, right? They create the matriarchy here in America, unfortunately. Outside America, and you hear some dumb women say, they said we are in a patriarchy, but they act and move to be more control and matriarchs than being under some man, which I find to be very weird. But, like I said, we don't listen to what women say. We always go what they do, And usually, if you move only on your feelings, you don't get nothing done. Matter of fact, you don't get shit done, personally. You're just going to constantly always overthinking, always moving because it didn't feel right, and then you don't get nothing done, nothing accomplished. That's how I look at it. Now, Tim writes, interesting. I never look at it in a way. But now thinking about is I had to take my little brother out of elementary school because of the sick program California school system implements. Yeah, I mean, right now, if you're part of a family, Tevin, and your brother is, let's say, 6-7 years old and in kindergarten, you always gotta be mindful that most likely he's gonna be indoctrinated into some of this new pseudo type of understanding of what is perceived to be a young boy or trained to be a young girl in these school systems, And trust me, they are training these boys to think and operate like a sissy. Sorry to say this, but that's how I look at it. So, all right, let's keep going.
Take a little of the heat out of this part of the dialogue if we realize that human relationships very often have the same properties, whether it is mother and daughter, father and son, wife and husband. And if I hear Helen correctly, and I concur with her, what she is saying is that any two human beings, no matter what the sex, no matter what the relationship, if one is utterly economically dependent upon the other, you have an unhealthy relationship. One is symbiotically attached to the other. The one who is dominant, either economically or otherwise, is also enslaved because of the responsibility. I have seen this in parents, elderly parents, and unmarried children. And I have seen it in wife and husband. I think the question of options means that women ought to have the opportunity and ought to be encouraged to be autonomous human beings, irrespective of whether they are single or married or have children or do not have children.
Could I say that some people, I think, marry because each of them has sort of similar lacks, and they're hoping through this relationship to bring together something that often cannot happen because they did not have this opportunity before they entered into this agreement to be whole persons able to make some decisions.
I'm in complete agreement with that. I think there's a whole dimension that this conversation is missing, which I would like to talk about. And I feel that the implication is, especially the way you talked about young people, that this was an individual phenomena or an individual solution. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's a socio-political phenomena, that the whole thing that's happening to young people, that's happened to my life, is not a separate individual problem. I understand very well I was on the course of a career. I could have proceeded with that career. It was very clear to me what the university expected, what all the sort of things to do to be a career, and I would have been amongst the exceptional women who were accepted with a certain amount of room to move, very limited, but a certain amount. I think the phenomena of my generation is that we understand that that was meaningless, that for me to pursue that as an individual woman was not a meaningful thing to do with my life. I looked around me, I saw women being miserable, both women who had made it and had to fight so hard, as well as women who felt that they didn't have an opportunity. And I think that that's a much more important dimension to the question of opportunity and options, that the reason for the question of opportunity and options is not simply their existence, but what is the whole society about in which they exist. And the kind of thing you said about young people copping out, I don't think young people today are copping out at all. I think that they may, for the first time, be trying to cop into the process and are discovering that the whole structure of society does not want them to, in fact, participate.
I agree with you.
Now, this is what is experienced now during the 70s, 1970 to be exact. And now we look at women now in 21st century, 54 years later, how a lot of them, let's be honest, they say they're doing fine, but we know the data, they're not really doing that well, as a spec. And not only that, they're miserable. Because if you had it all like that, you should be able to move through life and be able to hold down a relationship and maybe be married and still cooperate with no problem. But as we see throughout, not the words what these ladies do, but the actions, they can't do both. They can't multitask. And I'm being dead serious. I cannot find a woman right now in mass, right now, that considers herself a boss, be independent, that multitasks while having a very reasonable relationship with a man. No matter his background, economic background, personally. And what I mean, it doesn't matter. Because even dudes that make more of them are catching hell to a lot of these women today, the way they're thinking, unfortunately. Some of them that got even simple BS degrees, bullish degrees, think they're more superior and intelligent and smarter than a man, which I don't know how that's possible. Okay. So you're miserable now because, Mr. Charlie made a way to give you, open the doors for you to indulge in the glories of certain things. And in return, you will be working Hell, and I know one dude told me, said some, if they don't do what they need to do while still in around their 20s and maybe very early 30s, they will be out here, alone. You know, God knows that they don't have kids before that, and then still put themselves out here. They're gonna be pretty much alone, and there's consequence for a lot of people, that even women that are alone now, because really, truly, you're not really should be out here in this world alone, because you don't get everything you want. Hell, if your father was involved in your life, I would know personally, and I could be wrong, and there's some simp dads, they should never give their daughter the world or give them everything. That's a bad sign, because what you're breeding is an entitled ish. And we don't need more entitled ish women, because entitlement breeds contempt, and a lot of them are not really contempt. They want, if they don't get it, they'll, they will argue or do something to either attain it, or as to say, I won't have, I'll just keep pushing till I get it. So, all right, let's keep going.
Charlotte, but I think we have to talk about developmental stages of life, if I can use that horrible term. And I think when we speak of young people, sometimes we conjure up an image of someone of the college age.
Oh, and please, guys, hit the like button, share the stream, and please become a member of the channel and subscribe to the Chaos Rain Show. And like always, I gotta do this. You know it. You know times, guys.
Baby.
Oh, wrong one. You know what time is, guys.
My money.
I told you.
Where is my money?
Betty, bring me everyone.
I need my money. I need my money.
Let's continue. Fair use. Fair use.
20-year-old. When I'm talking about cop-out, I was really talking about young people, 14 and 15, who have their sights only on the whole idea of marriage, which is what has been portrayed through various, media, if I can use that term.
Right.
And so when I say cop-out, I mean many of them do, and I know they do. They write to me, they talk with me, they say, I think I would like to drop out of school and marry him, because I know that that is what I most of all want to do. And that, I think, at that age, is a cop-out.
Okay, that I can understand, but I think that, too, has to be seen socially.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that the entire pressure on young women, and particularly anyone who has grown up since the war, through the media, through the magazines, has been an entire pressure for the happy housewife.
That's right, I agree.
To talk about it, to go back to the original question about why are there fewer women in the professions, etc., I think we have to understand that that was a conscious effort. That happened through the media, that happened through the women's magazines. It was not simply an accident that women were sent back to the homes. That has to be struggled with at that level, not simply at the level of individual options, because the individual options exist when the social structures are changed which allow them to exist. And then you can talk about, as you did, I think rightly, women having the right to choose from a number of different models.
No,
I think go ahead.
I just want to push that in the process of achieving it, that we also allow for this kind of evolution for the individual and for the society. That each individual is a continuous human being, it seems to me, and the society is a continuous unit, not a disjunctive one. And that in the presentation of the new opportunities, and in the fight, the quest for the new opportunities, that we allow for this kind of incremental, step-by-step, bit-by-bit approach on the part of an individual. You see, I believe that women, the young women I've dealt with over the years, are put off by two seemingly very polar problems to them. One is, indeed, the male chauvinist world. The other one is a clear and present danger perceived by many of them of becoming a, quote, feminist. You know, of having to assume the style and tone of a thing they are not ready or do not choose to do. Now, I just want our range of models to allow them every form of hybrid, you know.
Let me suggest to you.
In the way.
Let me suggest to you that the most deadly feminists are the quietest, most feminine, most unassuming, and underneath most furious. I think I must concur with Charlotte here for the reason I think that what she has not said, she has not labeled it, I think that we are dealing with what I would call institutional sexism, that from the time the child is born, sometimes impersonal social forces, institutional forces, are compelling that child to go into a certain mold. In the topic of our discussion today, it is male and female. In another context, it would be white or black. And I would have to dissent from the notion, do girls or do women really want to perform in terms of excellence? I think those of us, women, who have this long list of accomplishments, are analogous to what the young black militants call the middle-class Negroes who have made it. We have made it sometimes by single-minded determination. This is not the way I would want a niece or great-niece of mine to have to make it. I would want her to have the opportunities to evolve in the very way that Mrs. Wexler is suggesting. What I do suggest is that we are in the middle, right in the midst of a human rights revolution. Racial groups, women, homosexuals, the aged, the handicapped, and I could go down, the poor. In a revolution, it is not so neat and tidy. There comes a time when we cannot sit on the sidelines. We have to take a stand. And we have to say that even with all of the untidiness, sometimes the obscenity, sometimes the repulsiveness of the individual actors in the revolution, we are nevertheless obligated to get in there and pitch. Now, I submit, if the so-called middle-class women who have made it, who have the long lists of accomplishments, got in there and began to change the society, we would very quickly have the young people moving more nearly in our direction, rather than in taking the more extreme position.
Could I add something to Polly? I don't think that women as a group, if we can say as a group, and men too, have ever really considered some of the implications.
Oh, one other thing. To let y'all know, women got it good here in America, the West. All this talking about male oppression, all this nonsense, that's for the birds. I've noticed now lately, because of certain rules put in place now, even regulations of touching, graping that happened or might allege happened decades ago, women are able to cash in that. As one particular person is having battles right now as we speak. So they got it good. I'm not sure where this notion that how much more so-called alleged power they need, but let's keep going. Fairies.
Of the things for which we stand and the things that we are working for today. I don't think we really have thought through the family of the future, the man-woman relations of the future. I think we are naive at this point. We're talking about wanting this change, but we don't know what's going to happen to lifestyles. And I think a great many women, it's not the matter of only of getting out and fighting for these things that we want, but I think we have to have much more thought, because I think family life is going to be radically changed in the future. And so all kinds of human relationships. You may want to wait on that one, but
let's go right into that as soon as this brief pause is over. I'd like Mrs. Bunch Weeks to talk about the really central issue of power, because that's where we're at. Get your teeth into it.
Well, I think, first of all, in terms of power, that the kind of way I would describe what we're up against is a male supremacist society, which is a society in which power is institutionally held in white males, in which all of the institutions are under that control. And I think that that's the kind of situation in which one of the things that the media has done, which I think is very important to understand, is to focus the way that women's liberation has talked about male chauvinist attitudes, but not to, in fact, pick up on the basic institutional questions that we have talked about. The whole bra burner image which I don't object to, but which has been picked up in a way in order to avoid the institutional question, which is male power or male supremacy or white male power, as I would see it. And I think that's the most basic challenge that women's liberation has to get to. All of our institutions are totally controlled in that way. And I would just like to link that with what we were on before, because I think that the question of feminists or the question of an extremist view is in fact the question of what is necessary to break the stranglehold of a white male supremacist society, which is to in fact take a very strong view about women's power, and that's what feminism for me means. I think we have to be very careful that feminism was made over by male historians to make us afraid of the question of women's power, because in fact the feminists of an earlier century were very strong women who sought power, and that is in fact a function of our society to disengage us, to separate us from our
I'm sorry, guys. I didn't know I was muted. I said, to be they want to establish some form of power, pseudo power, or whatever you want to call it. And to get power, you're going to do equal work. You're going to have to do maybe have to do like what the Romans do, or even go as far as you're going to have to I'll say this to be fair and nice. Picket signs, burning bras, and do all this other weirdo stuff is not a sense of power. Even go as far as closing your legs, even back then and now. You're going to have to do the equal amount of work that men have done throughout the centuries to obtain power. And what men have done, like Wolverine said, it's not nice. And I think most women today are not willing to be not nice to get that same outcome. If you feel me? That's the best way I can say it. Anyway, let's keep going. Raise.
Sisters who were seeking power before. And that in that sense, it was an extremist view then that women should vote. And when we talk about an extremist view, in my mind, that is a view that women are going to have to not ask for, but demand and take power and control in many institutions in this society because of the kind, I could link that to too many things, so I won't go into that, but the kinds of directions that the society is going in terms of the war, in terms of racism, in terms of imperialism throughout the world. I really think that a women's movement is responsible not only for getting our own opportunities in education, etc., which we need, but is responsible for redirecting a society that is controlled in that way. But that's too much, so someone else should
Now
go
I
ahead.
think we're really back to where we started on the meaning of the vote, that it's, now that we've got the franchise and perhaps we can leave that question behind, that the issue is on the substance position we take on vote after vote. My own reading of the future of this society is whether or not there is any chance that at the turn of the century the federal budget will be in inverse ratio to its present position on domestic and military spending. Now, if one could take those issues one at a time, we've
Now, one thing she said that was very profound. What the government's doing with the money. And women love to pocket watch things. And yes, the military spending, which is like the military complex, like the old presidents one day feared of, I think it was Eisenhower's feared of, is that they're the ones that dictate where things are going, especially the budget of the military, because that's where all the money is pouring into there. So for her to look there, and she did some research on how much where the money is being spent in America, and they could tell right off the bat that they're not getting much of that pie, allegedly. But no one say that still men run society, run the country, and they do what's in the best interest to keep this country afloat. And one other thing, for women say they're going to infiltrate these institutions that was designed by man, let's keep in mind, and if you're able to infiltrate, that means that institution has no value in the long run if you come in. All right, Tim writes, she made a strong argument, but look what feminist culture has become today. Absolutely, what they call atrocious in the eyes of the world. Yeah, it is very much atrocious, and it all good reason it should be atrocious, because most majority of people today, Tevin, the ladies especially, they got bought in that they are unfortunately equal as men today. But when they should be doing the equal value of men, that's where the line cuts off, and that's where the problem ensues. Let's keep going. I mean, how much more? All right, are we good on time? All right, let's keep going. Fair use.
Skirted them. Equal employment, but equal employment not just for men, women, the kind of employment that will address the society, the substance questions of the aging, of dignity for every citizen, of education for every citizen over a long period of time. If women could be in the forefront, women as persons can be in the forefront of those substance moves, they may or may not be women's moves. It will be human moves. I want to be involved in the human condition.
I think that's really the whole point, that women will have to be in the decision-making apparatus of this whole country. By that, I mean the cabinet, the highest posts in government.
Let's be very concrete about it. I hope to live to see a woman who is qualified President of the United States. I hope to live to see 3, 4, 5 women on the Supreme Court. I hope to live to see at least 1/3 of Congress, both Senate and the House, women. I say 1/3 because roughly working women are 1/3 of the working population, so I'll settle for 1/3. I would like to see this happen in every state, every local government. My basic reason for this is that a society in which 1/2 of the population is not present to make the decisions is a society in dangerous imbalance, irrespective of rights. You see, I don't think that males have all the answers. And because I don't think that males have all the answers, I think our society has gone off the tracks.
Okay. Let's tackle that. If the males didn't have all the answers, then by all means, to give everything back that the males have created. You know, if the males create for their own indulgence, if they have all the answers. And let's be clear, there might be some women out there that, you know, are good at their jobs to make the actual decisions without emotions, if they can. Because really, to do those executive roles, jobs, you got to really operate like a man. And most women are not going to be operating and functioning like a woman in those bigger positions, because it requires a sense of responsibility, you know. So if you think and feel that males are that incompetent, okay, then, you know, you must take back what men have created, you know, and even go as far as, you know, let the men step back and let you, you know, function and build and structure society. And I'm always saying it's because, you know, I'm not knocking her decision. She's the right to say that, you know. But then again, you must uphold, and I mean uphold, the responsibility and take the accountability that comes with it. And personally, a lot of women today are not in the business of taking any form of accountability. Hell, I think some women that was in a certain position of power, when they start to mess up or F up, they put the responsibility on somebody else. And I'm saying you can't have both ways. Stop it. I'm just saying, ladies, I mean, we gotta be honest here. All right. Let me see what's going on here. All right. Let's look at something, guys. All right. Okay, let's keep going, guys. Fair use. Oh, and Tim writes, what do you write? Okay. Those are some bold words she just spoke, but has nothing to back it up. All talk and no bite. Yep. And our bite seems really soft, like a kitten. You know. But, you know, what do I know?
God damn it! You can't make this shit up!
All right, let's continue.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're absolutely right. But the question that now comes is, how do we, what means do we use to get this power? I'm wondering very much whether, and this is only in the extremist sense, whether hostility is going to work. I'm with Mrs. Wexler there entirely. I don't think, you know, the pig techniques and the rock techniques, and I mean rhetorically and actually,
But you see,
is the way we're going to persuade men and women.
You're
It's
looking
essential.
at the visible part of the iceberg. You are not looking at the very careful, quiet organization that is going on among women. Betty Friedan is sitting in the audience. 4 years ago, she and 32 women, including myself, started a little organization called Now. Now is now called the Outstanding Civil Rights Organization, and we are constantly called the middle class, middle-aged, moderate matrons. But we are the gals who are trained. We are the gals who, when the negotiating is done, are doing it, are filing the briefs, are marshaling the testimony, factual, invulnerable testimony. So that I think what has happened, and the mass media have aided and abetted this, is that we have focused on the radical fringe, the way outs of the women's movement, precisely as we have done on the Black Panthers and radicals
And the youth.
and the youth. And we have not looked at that group, usually a middle-class trained group, which begins and accelerates every revolution. The black revolution in this country was led by middle-class Negroes. And it was not until major legal and constitutional gains were made that we began to get the masses of Negroes moving into the revolution. I think the same is happening among women. And
Now, I think what was implied that I think when they call it a Carter Commission of the 60s, that started to integrate. A lot of integration started to happen during when it first busted out, 1954, and then the integration really came fruition in 1964. Now, it is roughly 60 years. 70 years to be exact, when this movement started to shift, where black people and the segregation portion had to stop. You know, and I think we could say the good president Eisenhower had some to do with that as well when he was in office, because he had to, you know, come to terms to really start unify, you know, the people and the races, you know, because separation not gonna go far in America, the way how America was shifting and going at that time. All right, let's keep going. Various.
I think we would be misled if we constantly focus on the more alienated and do not watch that middle group that is marching straight forward.
Could Could I add something, since
Yes,
this is a YWCA occasion? I would like to say that we have very much on our mind in the YWCA, both in the city of New York and nationally through the Women's Resource Center, about the great need that there is to make women aware of how they are their own worst enemy in relation to the goals that they speak of so glibly. Because unless women come to the support of women and are able to interpret what women can do, none of these things that Polly hopes to live to see will come to pass, because there are hidden motivations. There's an unconsciousness in some women, makes them feel that really the man is better. You see, there are many women across our country who have not really thought about the possibilities of women. And I think there's much work that needs to be done, bringing them together in groups to help them to see what is their role in social progress in this society. So I just don't want us to be thinking that it's going to come about without working with that great group. 51% or whatever it is, women, they could have the vote, they could affect change, but back to our first question, unless we make people aware of it.
Do they want to?
Some do, some don't.
No, but I'm talking now of this great middle group, middle America, middle class, middle of the road, middle housewife, consumer. We will get...
It's America.
See, I think that that's partly a myth, and I also think that we have to understand the consciousness that's just begun amongst women. In the same way that you talk about your history 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I was in a group that started one of the first women's liberation discussion groups, and that has mushroomed, beyond all proportion. And the kind of things that I said 3 years ago were called extremist. I was told that I was too...
Well, all form of extremism is going to be marked with pushback. And like any new thought that's put out there, you're going to be met with resistance. I mean, if you look at back in ancient time, and you might notice, Tevin, back in days of when the Romans started to come around, I think it was one of the intellects, that philosophers, Plato and them cats, Aristotle and all that stuff, how they came with a different thought, and which could possibly enlighten and bring a sense of revolution, radical thinking. And we all know what happened to him. He got ran out of town. So to what this lady is saying about, the thoughts of feminism and this radical type of thinking, yeah, it's going to meet with a lot of resistance to not just the bigger heads, but just the people, the locals, because you bring something that's foreign to the psychology and they're going to push back, and they're going to push back very much aggressively that you're not even ready for. And most men have always suffered from this. I think most women today can't deal with any pushback of that nature, if in regards to what she is saying, in my opinion. Let that sink in. Because when women feel the pressure, they feel it. Fair use.
Hostile. I was told that women would not respond. I was told that women don't want any of these things. And within 3 years, the response has just been overwhelming. Right. And I think this is the kind of phenomena that's going on. I agree that it certainly does not mean that all of the women have responded, but to see it in a historical perspective, what has begun over the past 5 years is, in my mind, phenomenal. And I think that that's kind of the way we have to view what is beginning. But I also want to put that also with the question of power, and the kind of question of whether you get power by being hostile. I think to put the emphasis on hostility is the wrong focus. The question is that no power structure throughout the history of the world has ever willingly given up power. There has never been a power structure and a person in power who willingly gave that up. And we cannot assume that the white male power structure of this country, which is primarily ruling the world, is any more willing to give up its power without a fight. And it seems to me that we can argue a lot about the tactics of that fight, and I'm willing to go into a lot of discussion about what tactics win, etc. But my basic assumption is no one gives up power without a fight, and that women have got to fight in that same way for what they want.
Well, let me suggest.
But you fought, and let's be honest, this is all orchestrated. Let's be clear. You fought and you won this little battle. And now we're looking at, since 1970, this videotape, till now 2024. What do you have to show for it now? Is the biggest question. You have nothing to show for it now. Matter of fact, if we all know, a lot of women nowadays are very much psychotic, to the point they're psychotic in their actions, they're psychotic in their thinking, their movement. And let's be honest, the unrealistic standards a lot of women got, let's just keep it, it's unrealistic. And the outcome is you're gonna get less. And if you look at most males that either gonna fulfill your unrealistic standards or to say F it, you're getting less of it now. And you get less of it. But a lot of these males today, they're not, or men actually, I don't want to say males, men, they're just gonna say, I'm just gonna find a store. Now, is it right for a lot of men to just pack them and go? I can't say no or yes, but if they don't feel respected and you're not being realistic, and women, you gotta keep things simple at the end of the day. The standard should be simple enough where it's something that someone can at least say I could meet some of them. But when you put in all these categories, it's like, yeah, you ain't getting nobody. I mean, you're not getting nobody. Matter of fact, you're lucky to get at least 90% of that so-called standards to be fulfilled. And even that you might, yeah. All right, let's go. Fair use.
Just this about hostility. I don't think it is necessarily hostility against individuals always, except that little individual who's standing there blocking your way. I don't think it's an accident that people are so angry today in the movement, either women or Negroes or blacks. What happens is that when you attack a system, it will make certain superficial concessions, and a few people will benefit. But when you train your sights on the very foundation of that system, Negroes are demanding the end of racism. Women are demanding the end of sexism. Racism and sexism are built into the core of the United States. There is a very real question as to whether we can perform surgery without losing the patient. When you do this, you are getting hostility from the establishment, from the status quo. And you would be even greater than the man some of us follow if you did not become hostile and angry in return.
No, I understand that because obviously I think we all do, that there is an immense resistance to change. And that none of these things that we want, you want, most of us want, can happen without overall radical social change. It's not just it's a human revolution.
That's right.
And I also think it must concern the liberation of men. I don't think in there, I mean seriously, that I think the whole industrial complex here is draining the life out of out of men, or the humanity, technology too, so that we're all in it together. And what I hope we'll still have time to discuss how to do this. What changes really will have to come about in the family, in work habits and everything, in order that we can loosen this one grip, male white grip. I think this might be as good a place as any to let the station.
If it were in
break.
Africa, it would be male black grip.
What we'll also do is to throw this open to, I'm sure, a champing audience after the station break.
All right.
We are now.
Y'all know what time it is again.
I told you.
Where is my money?
Betty. Bring me everyone.
I need my money. I need my money.
What do you mean everyone?
Everyone!
Make sure you guys support the channel. Super chat or Cash App. I think $sign Chaos 8 Ring. Support this channel. As you know, it's a different approach to today's stream. We're looking at the role of women. And, have they really turned the community, or, what role black women, generally follow with these feminists that cause more of the destruction of, the black family, black household, etc. Let's keep listening in. And trust me, it is very intriguing if you watch this or get back to replay of this. Let's go.
This mighty subject, and it is mighty, over to the studio audience. And I believe we have a first question.
Yes, my name is Lucy Ann Goldberg, and I am national chairman of an organization called the Pussycat League. I'd like to direct a question.
Pussycat League? Are you serious? What the hell? Fair use, fair use.
To Dr. Murray, because she did say that she was one of the, and indeed she is one of the founding members of this revolution, which is really is a revolution and is now a movement. I would like to know, Doctor, what you feel can be done, if indeed you feel anything should be done, about counteracting some of the violent hostility that the excesses of the liberation are causing. By that I mean the terrible resistance that is building up to the extremist side that has gotten the attention.
It depends upon how much influence, i.e. power, you have on the mass media. It is the mass media that spotlights the hostility.
Now, right there, I want y'all to pay attention here. I'm letting her keep going. Fair use, fair use.
The movement is still so small that unless the mass media picked up the so-called excesses, they wouldn't even make a drop in the pail. But the mass media do not pick up the solid kinds of performance that the people who are working within the system are doing.
Do you feel that there is going to be a concerted effort by the more sane women's organizations, liberation organizations,
well,
to do
let's
something
not
about
use such
this?
judgments about sane.
I think you're very sane in your group is.
Yes, but sane people don't always get very far. We may thank the young militants for having called attention to this problem. They have made the noise. I sometimes call them the commandos. And we come along as the troops. But for the bra burners, we would never have made the front page of the New York Times.
What will happen when the media, the editors across the country and the newsrooms and the television stations are completely fed up and find no more news value to bra burnings and marches?
Well, I would hope that by that time, we so-called sane women would be exercising our power. There are all kinds of things that a highly organized group of people can do. They can make their impact felt by boycotting, by simply not buying a magazine, or by carrying on more direct action.
Thank you.
So in layman's term, the media is always the culprit that either pushes or demonize or even empower these so-called movements. And it's ironic how the media is functioning now. They very much know what's going on, and they're very much plotting what to do to either counteract it or promote it as some of significance. And let's be honest, gentlemen, men are influenced by what they see, yes, but women are heavily influenced to what they see, hear, and touch, and especially what they watch on television. If you look at all the famous television shows from Scandal, which I did not know was so popular back in 2014 up to 2020, I believe. I did not know a lot of black women watch Scandal and view themselves, and they really check it and really, instead of confronting it, stop watching it, or even go as far as make the simple complaints about it, or excise their option by not putting eyeballs onto that. They sit there, cheer on it. They were happy. Hell, some probably promote it on their own social media and let you know that when they said that that black women are so-called alleged bedwenching, they might be right about that person. They might be right about that, because that was the whole purpose of Scandal. And it's giving really ladies a bad look. Let's be honest, especially the sisters. Nothing like that should be so comfortable that you watch night in, night out and think that that's a good thing. But like I said, when you have no self-respect, self-esteem, you idolize the white god. Like David Carroll said, that white skin removes all imperfections and sins. Fair use, fair use.
If I just add one little comment, I think the most important thing I would want to add is that the way in which hostility and violence and so forth is ended is when change comes.
Right.
And that, in fact, the cause of hostility...
Wait, let me read your comments. Wait, hold on a second. Let me check. You wrote something. Okay, I see now. You wrote that there was feminist groups in Russia called the Pussy, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And Scandal was a hit in the island. I would not be surprised, Tevin. You know, with the island gal, the gal, they sure do love Zaddy in a bad way. Hell, they will bust wide open for Zaddy if given opportunity. For them to watch Kerry Washington, which her mother is from, I think she's from Jamaica. Kerry Washington's mother's side is Jamaican. Her father's like American. That makes a lot of sense. Now I think about it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Oh, let's keep going. There you go.
Hostility and violence is the hostility and violence and the lack of change. So that if you want to focus on how to reach our human desire, we have to focus on how to bring the changes which make it unnecessary to have that kind of anger and rage in existence.
We have another question waiting in the wings.
Yes, I'm Myrtle Whitmore from the New York City Housing Authority, and I also must say that I'm from the citywide board of the Young Men's Christian Association. It's the first time in its history that it has had women on the board. I'd like to address this question to President Wexler. Do you think that the education of women and men should be different? That's one part. And the second part, what do you think the colleges and universities can do to aid the women's liberation movement?
First of all,
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's hear her answer. Let's hear Mrs. Sarah's question. Fair use.
if you mean should the education of men and women be segregated either by no personal geography or by style, my answer to that is no. I think that within education we need to extend again the range of options for what human beings can do. I think if we ever can learn to use the bureaucracy in its bigness, which I maintain is necessary to humanism if we mean one big human family and not just the little parochial family in Tenafly or Illinois or wherever it may be, we've got to accept bigness, but we've got to find a way within that bigness to make the individual the integrating center of his or her own experience. Now, that's what I want to do with liberalizing education. I don't know what liberal arts means anymore, but I think that the liberalizing education is the one that frees the individual to see a range of options and to begin getting experience in trying one of those options and seeing it through, and then learning that he or she can change 17 or 18 or 27 times during the course of his life. I think that's what it's about, and I don't know how you focus that more on men or on women, except that the peculiar kinds of limitations which we as women have had because of history, I think give us a chance by focusing on women's education to do it for the whole human family in a better way. I think, for instance, that we need to break the notion of either 12 or 16 or 22 consecutive years of so-called...
You know, as she's babbling, it would be nice to get to the point. Should children, boys, girls, be separated? That's the question. Fair use.
Schooling. I think that's an absurd notion. I think, you know, if I were going to fight for one piece of legislation on the educational level, I would fight for guaranteed income for a minimum of 4 years for every citizen of the United States to be taken in any pattern of pieces that the individual wants. You know, that we commit ourselves to the human family to support everybody for at least 4 years, and he or she can choose to break that up into 18 to 22, or a piece of it when he's 18 and a piece when he's 26, and maybe we can extend the barriers of that on and on, or the non-barriers of it on and on. Those are the kinds of things that I would like to, that I really focus my whole life on. I think that we need to break up the notion of when we work. as we're working, as we're moving toward a society, which they tell us over and over as we work around the clock, some of us, is going to be going down to 4-day weeks and 3-day weeks, that we accept that and we begin to play with it in very constructive and positive ways. And we accept the fact that a person can teach for 4 hours a day or 2 hours a day, and he's a full-time teacher for 2 hours instead of a part-time teacher.
Is this one getting to the point? She's babbling right now. Have y'all noticed that? Fair use, fair use.
For 7. Yes. And, these sorts of things, precisely because the limitations have been focused on women in our lifetime and for history, have made it more apparent in the cases of women that in focusing on it, we will unlock the system for all human beings.
Yes.
Thank you. The second part.
I'm not sure if she answered the question, but I'll take it that roughly she don't see that men and women should be separated in regards to education. I could be wrong. I could rewind that back for those. I'm probably going to do that right now. See if she really even answered the question. It's not stupid. It's a real, actual, legit question. All right, there we go.
Do you think that the education of women and men should be different? That's one part. And the second part, what do you think the colleges and universities can do to aid the women's liberation movement?
First of all, if you mean should the education of men and women be segregated either by
No.
personal geography or by style, my answer to that is no. I think that within education, we need to extend again the range of options for what human beings can do. I think if we ever can learn to use the bureaucracy in its bigness, which I maintain is necessary to humanism if we mean one big human family and not just the little parochial family in Tenafly or Illinois or wherever it may be, we've got to accept bigness. But we've got to find a way within that bigness to make the individual the integrating center of his or her own experience. Now, that's what I want to do with liberalizing education. I don't know what liberal arts means anymore, but I think that the liberalizing education is the one that frees the individual to see a range of options and to begin getting experience in trying one of those options and seeing it through, and then learning that he or she can change 17 or 18 or 27 times during the course of his life. I think that's what it's about, and I don't know how you focus that more on men or on women, except that the peculiar kinds of limitations which we as women have had because of history, I think give us a chance by focusing on women's education to do it for the whole human family in a better way. I think, for instance, that we need to break the notion of either 12 or 16 or 22 consecutive years of so-called schooling. I think that's an absurd notion.
I'm going to take it personally, guys, that she did not even, she went around and did a whole, and this is the problem when we have these panels with ladies and men. I'm not sure, no, I know who's worse at this. A simple question was asked, and that was a direct question that needs a direct answer. Should, yes or no. And after that, you could go into the babble. What I heard for 3 minutes to what I gotten. And we already know from what has been studied and what was well documented that boys and girls that will become the men and women of tomorrow need to be separated in regards to education, because boys don't move and act and think like these chicks are. But you see, she's not going to admit that and tell you that, because by doing that, then it lets you know that if the boys are separated enough throughout their development from 12 to high school, then they're going to have a heads up on the girls, and they can't afford that. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. All right. So let's move on.
We will unlock the system for all human beings.
Yes.
Thank you. The second part.
I think I'd better move because we have to have a number of questions to a very distinguished lady who has the floor.
I'm Betty Friedan, and I help to found NOW, the National Organization for Women, which is the oldest and the largest of the women's liberation groups. And I was the coordinator of the National Strike for Equality, August 26, which was sponsored by enormous range of women representing groups and organizations, from the youngest and most militant of women's lib groups to women from the leadership of the YWCA and the NAACP, and black women, middle-class women, working women, trade union women, professional women, and many famous women too. And I want to pose a question based on this event that we're taking part in today. Aren't we already in our very actions beyond the need for the kind of apology that President Wexler and Maria, that you've maybe felt that one has to make, lest women seem too hostile, or lest there be that women be turned off, when in fact sitting here are the women from the leadership of the YWCA, both nationally and in the largest city of the nation, when the YWCA is an old, established organization dedicated to the interests of women. And I have noticed in the last few years that the leadership of the YWCA in the South and in the West, as well as in New York, is increasingly in tune with what is happening among women and the sense of women's new drive for equality. And I want to say for the record that many leaders of the YWCA throughout the country were involved in the coalition that was a new political note on August 26th that went into the streets on behalf of the demands for full equality for women in education opportunity, in job opportunity, for 24-hour child care centers, and for the right to free abortion on demand. Now, I would say that if, in fact, such a political coalition is possible, that if, in fact, women, black women, white women, across the lines of generation, of class, of race, of establishment and anti-establishment, can indeed unite, as they seem to be united here, in spite of some of our stylistic differences, and as they were visibly united on August 26th in their action, need it take 50 years or even 5 for us to get the kind of power that has been talked about here. In other words, not the power that we shall rule the world and put men down, because that's not what I think any of us want, but that we shall get somewhere near 50% of the decision-making power, in commensurate with our numbers in the population, in the Senate, in the Congress, and in the educational institutions, and in employment. And
let me run the commercial because too much babbling.
My money.
I told you.
Where is my money?
Betty, bring me everyone.
I need my money. I need my money.
What do you mean everyone?
Everyone! Make sure you guys hit the like button and support channel. Viva Super Chat or the Cash App. It's in the scrolling down bottom. My God, this is the question that they ask, and you think back then, even now, a lot of ladies would learn to really center their thoughts and come with an actual direct question instead of this so-called babble. I mean, my God. Anyhow, let's listen more to this. And it's almost done, guys. And after that, I probably will call it a day.
in getting this, we won't indeed restructure this whole society. And I'd like to put this question to any or all of you.
Well, may I field that just for a moment? I just want to clear up one point. I don't think any of us were apologizing for anything. Speaking for myself, I'm a great believer in the art of persuasion. And I don't think that you can persuade by insulting. And I don't think you can persuade by rejecting. And I don't think you can persuade by overt bitterness or hostility.
But you can persuade by
just
action and constructive action in concert, which is what all of us have been
yes,
doing lately
nobody's arguing
on concrete
about that.
demands. That persuades.
May I respond, because you and I were put in the same frame, I think, in the question. I would not quite agree with you if you really mean that one cannot ever persuade by chastising or insulting or any of these things. I simply mean that one can't persuade by only that. Now, I'm a great believer that it takes us all. and that we need not be in opposition to each other because we choose to play different roles or seem equipped to play different roles at different times. I do not want to take a stand against women's liberation. I don't want to take a stand against even bra burners. I just don't choose to do my thing or in that kind of role. And I think that if we really mean this business about supporting each other as women, then we have got to get away from saying that we've all got to stick together or we all fall separately, that there are many modes and many tones in which to do this.
I've got to now cede the floor to a waiting questioner who's been very patient.
Well, thank you. I'm Johnny Carey, and I'm a member of the YWCA. And I think maybe my question will be directed possibly to Charlotte Bunch Weeks and Dr. Maury. I must admit I'm a little bit more confused than I was at the beginning. Charlotte Weeks Maury continuously alluded to white male power and said that women would have to attack this part of the society and that it is a socio-political condition. Now, the black male doesn't have power, and so I want to have her.
Okay, now we have a question. All right, sis, now you ask a really direct question. Let's see what the outcome of this. Fair use.
Response to what role the black woman can play in the liberation movement, and how will this aid the black male?
Would you like a consecutive answer from both of us? You have joined us together, you know.
I'm not choosy, just clarify.
We haven't got very much time, so perhaps one of you had better answer it.
I don't think we are going to solve the question of racism until we solve the question of sexism, or until both are solved simultaneously. So that women's liberation, after many years of struggling with race liberations, women's liberation has become, in a sense, for me personally, a priority. The black male, like the black female, will not be liberated until we have a free society. It seems to me obvious by now that a 10% minority, even if it were 100% organized, in the economic and to some degree political and social powerlessness that Negroes have in this country today, cannot bring about a successful revolution, or I would prefer to say a successful transformation of society. The very weight of numbers and the very pervasiveness of the female presence, which cannot possibly be segregated, holds out, it seems to me, potential hope for a successful transformation of the political structures. And I think as this happens, as more women move into the movement for the liberation of women, there will be black women, Indian women, Puerto Rican women, all moving together and also with one eye on the liberation of the ethnic group to which they belong.
I'm sorry, Dr. Murray, but we do have to pause just for a moment, and we can come right back to...
I think I just about finished.
Come.
All right, well, she had to stop her. In layman's terms, that in your mind, unless you to her reconcile logic, you must liberate not one but both. You're not getting nowhere in regard to fixing the Negro problem. I think, like anything, once you start focusing more your attention on the boys that become men, this will probably eliminate roughly 90% of the problem in these communities. Now, one of the downsides that I always hear is that if you start really putting emphasis and energy on the boys that will become men, give them necessary resource, education, proper training, and all other things that the men do need to function in this weirdo society, you're going to see a slightly boost in the black community. in the so-called Western world we call America, which, you know, it's questionable. But if you decide to just say, put all your attention and energy on the girls and hope that the boy is going to alpha the way, I don't see that possible. And it goes back the importance, should you separate the boys from the girls? From the previous question I was asked the woman that was asking the Caucasian woman, and she went all around the bushes with that nonsense. I tell you one thing, unless you put your attention on these boys, you know, you're not getting enough done. This misogynistic, this chauvinist nonsense, you know, it's all sound good, but at the end of the day, you're gonna be miserable as a woman out here, you know. And that's why it's hard for me to believe that women are really doing good on the society, because if you're doing good, you won't be asking for much. You probably work and do what other men do, and you would attain it without no problem and be happy. But you know, like I said, women love free stuff. Hell, they want free food from you, gentlemen, and you sometimes oblige, if you oblige sometimes. But you know, we'll keep it at that. Fair use, fair use.
Back to the other question.
All right.
Before we go to the next question, Mrs. Bunchwick would very much like to address herself briefly to the last question.
I think the really important question for the black movement and the women's movement together is to work together in such a way that we do not allow our equally legitimate revolutions and demands to be posed in opposition to each other.
There is no black and female, which mostly European women and some black women in there, going to be no change or any growth or any actual revolutionary. See, black people are separate from other groups of people. Let's get real. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. If black women were a team of white women and there really was something, let's be fair, honest. They would potentially maybe threatening to what they call white women in regards to their man, roughly. And I said potentially. We all know that's bullshit. It's not really. I'm just being not saying potential, but overall, if white women or Caucasian women work alongside black women and try to revolutionize and meet interests, it always gonna come back that you're gonna be the losing hand, black women. And a lot of black women already seen this already for the movements that they were already involved with these ladies. So you think back then where it was clearly known that they didn't pay enough, even right now with DEI, I know anybody still in the chat room that knows what this is, but these so-called special programs or catchphrase words and stuff that even them, they're pushing back and trying to reinvent, restructure it for their own benefit while you be left holding the bag. There's no union between non-blacks and blacks, especially when we're talking about the women. Women play for keeps. And Tevin writes, it was a scam from the beginning. White women use black women as a means to galvanize support and push their agendas. Yes, they did. Their agendas, indeed. And they're going to continue pushing their agendas. And I think their agendas right now, as it states right now, probably it's been fulfilled right now, to be honest with you. But let's listen to this lady's conversation. And please, guys, support the channel. I know y'all watching the video, and I'm not sure how many likes I got. Let me see how many likes I have right here. I'm gonna run the video and see how many likes I got. Well, in fact, let me check. Let's check. I got 8 likes. People pop back in. So as you guys come in, likes free. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. And you know, I gotta run this again.
My money. I told you.
Where is my money?
Betty. Bring me everyone.
I need my money. I need my money.
What do you mean everyone?
Everyone!
And please support the channel as well. Let's continue. Fair use, fair use.
And that there will be a very strong tendency at times upon the part of the white male establishment to in fact pit us against each other in a way that makes us fight each other instead of fighting together. And it seems to me that as women, we have to always remember that our problem is not with the black male but in fact with the situation that has been set up for him. And we must hope that the black movement will recognize that we white women have an equal revolution and we must work together. And it seems to me that we as women have to set that tone in order that we are not pitted against the black movement, which would be a tragic mistake in my mind.
And don't forget Sarah, Becky, that also don't mind, getting on knees and for the black man, you know what I'm saying, and take on the essence of the black man, if I'd like to say so myself.
Thank you. Now we'll go on to the next question.
My name is Doris Clark. For many years, I was Chief Probation Officer of the New York City Magistrates Courts. And since my retirement, I've been serving as a member of the board of the YWCA. Looking forward to the day that Dr. Murray is talking about, when we will have a woman president and a woman attorney general and several women on the Supreme Court, and equal balance of power in the Senate and the House of Representatives and all the way down to the level of local government. I wonder if any of you ladies on the panel feel that you are convinced that there is a potential in woman power that would actually enable a woman president of the United States to give us the humanist society that Professor Wexler wants to see. The potential of a woman attorney general who would tackle the terrific problem of organized crime and the mafia. The potential of women senators who would legislate the kind of laws we need. The potential of women congressmen who would give us the kind of society that we idealistically say we want. Can we persuade people that giving women that kind of power, they would be able to bring about that kind of change?
Anybody want to answer this?
Can we persuade women to give women that kind of power?
Yes.
But what makes you feel that a woman in power is necessarily going to be free to escape the dog-eat-dog philosophy that men are subjected to, and the political dealing that men in power are subjected to?
Since we are presently out of power, we can almost dictate the terms by which we will come into power. We can reject much of what I consider to be the horse trading which men have fallen into. The one fatal error would be for women to imitate men in the uses of power. The one thing that the Black Revolution has taught us is that a group is seeking its own means of expressing itself. I would hope women, having lain fallow for 2,000 years, would see some of the errors which a male-dominated society has made and would reject those and attempt to find new ethical forms in the development of that society.
And what side would that be, my dear sister? We all know what side we are. Matter of fact, I'll do you one better. And one so-called weirdo lady that eats box and trying to convert women to, saying that men are bad, men are incapable, it's not right. If you ran society today, it's gonna be so much in chaos, even more chaos. You think the devil came out of the ground and said cheese to the amount of chaos he's seen what you ladies are gonna put out here? I'm the same. Because think about it. With their in relationships with each other, it's already bad enough. There's more domestic abuse. Some even go as far as align each other, and we hear from certain stories of women that were in certain position of power. We look at how the cities turn out. Oh no, if you were in the same position like the men, you right now, the way how women are functioning now today, it will be worse. And I guarantee it'll be worse. Because how they move, how they think, how they're entitled, and how they don't want to deal with accountability today. You cannot be honest, be a person, think that a set of women going to run a whole society. Now, can certain women inside be successful and run it? I would say if they have a certain demeanor, they're loving and caring, and they move a little more like they're female with the necessary small little logic here and there. Possibly they could pull it off. But today's set of women today, if they run society today, this whole society right now we're at, which most of them that ran society, we'd be in the brinks of destruction. And that's the honest truth. Fair use, fair use.
I don't think it's so much that we need new ethical forms, is that we need the implication of the ethical forms that we boast are our philosophy of approach, but are never observed.
Could I make a comment at this point? What I think we're driving at is equal collaboration. It isn't a question of women taking over entire power. It's a sharing power. Also, I cannot believe, considering the state the world is in, that even though we couldn't do much better, we could do any worse.
There's no sharing power. There is no sharing power. Power is power. And we can even go as far as absolute power. Either you got it or not. For a lot of women that think that power can be shared, you're living in a delusion. Not even in history we find existence of civilization share anything. There's someone that has it and there's someone that doesn't have it. Takers, Let that sink in. Fair use.
I just want to add, I think that what was said here is very important to that, which is that women's power will not be any different if the forms by which people take power in this country and control people's lives illegitimately are not changed at the same time.
Right.
And that women have to be changing those forms at the same time that we are demanding power.
Right.
And that would be the difference.
Afraid we have to move now to our next questioner.
My name is Betsy Smith, and I'm also a representative of the YWCA. And I'm also presupposing a liberated future for women. And I throw this question open to anybody on the panel. How do we deal with the enormous male ego as qualified women inevitably take away some of the jobs that are now being held?
Salute, Victorious Luke.
By not so qualified men.
I would love to hit that one. Yes, you may. If we really believe that merit should be the basis for climbing the ladder, then obviously men of inferior performance are going to go down the drain. Men of superior performance will not be in any way affected. As a matter of fact, they may even be enhanced. Now, this is simply too bad. But people fail bar examinations every day. They fail civil service examinations every day. Men will know more failures than they have in the past.
Could I add to that? It seems to me that in the early rearing of the children, as we said earlier, it's terribly important that one builds some kind of a good self-image in a child. If we don't feel right about ourselves, we're never going to be able to sit in any seat of power. And this begins very early, much earlier than many of us are thinking of. We talk about at a certain point, but it has to be very, very early.
I'm terribly sorry.
Oh, and please, guys, support the channel. Hit the super chat or cash app. Chaos 8 Rain. In regards to what she said before, there's failures. I'm gonna say it's to the gentleman that's listening, and to those that even young Tevin that you try and be doing some other things with your life, which is great. There's always gonna be, and I say this nicely, and I've come to grips with myself, that failure is a necessity. Let me repeat that again. Now, a lot of people are going to get mad that black men should not fail. And I'm saying, in which realistic world you live in the world you live in today, that you're not going to fail? Anything you try to set out. One of the few things that this society has done, and what have women done to their boys that become men, is they have trained their sons intentionally to be afraid of failure. Do I need to repeat that, gentlemen? I'll repeat it. They are trained their boys that will become the future men to of failure. Failure is a necessity. It is the inevitable in things we do in life, right? You study for a test, or you try to do something different, or even go as far as throw your own money. You're going to fail in something. Period. Now, will you always fail every time? I cannot say that. But if you're not even failing on something and you go throughout life like you're always a winner, to me, you did not try. Nothing. You don't embrace failure, and you have not learned from it. It is the stage of development of the human existence. Things that were built that we consume today. Someone had to go out the way and fail, attempt to create something that is out of nothing into something. If you think you as a man, if you're going to go tackle life and think you're not going to be averse to failure, you're sadly mistaken. See, they train you to be afraid of it, because by doing so, you're not going to even try at all. So for what she said earlier, this chick right here with the glasses said earlier, the black one, but there's winners, losing, there's failure, and everything, all that nonsense. I will say this. If that's your thinking, then obviously you have failed any future son that might have came at you. Your son should embrace failure and have an understanding it is a part of life. And he should not always say it is a thing that either he should accept or should not accept. He should know this comes with the territory. The only thing you could do if you're a person that's going to fail, you should have an understanding of not only one failure, but two failures. After multiple failures, it should make you learn that there's some things that you're going to do, one or two things, do something different, or you're going to try to change the approach to hopefully have a better outcome. That's it. Now, we got to give support like always, and I see some here.
They be knocking, y'all. The sonic rings up out of it, and you.
Urain Victorious, $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. And he also writes, fear of failure stops a lot of people from success. Yes. And you must understand, Victorious, this is a learned behavior. Young black men or men that's our age or maybe not much older, we fear the unknown. And the one biggest thing that's the biggest crutch to black men is the failure piece. They train a lot of us to say either you succeed or that's it. And some might overcome and succeed, depending. But majority are going to fail. So it's better to understand that failure is not a crutch where you got to hold your head down and that's it. No, you should embrace it and notice it's part of the game. It's a part of life. You got to be able to figure out and understand that you're going to lose. And that is something you're going to have to get out of and overcome. Simple as that. Let's keep this video is almost done. Some wrap this video. Fair use.
We have time for only one more question.
I would like to address my question to Mrs. Southard. If the Women's Equality Amendment is passed, what will be the basic changes in the status of women?
I think that's too large a question to answer in a short amount of time. If I could say that I think the future holds many changes in the lifestyles of women. I think that there are going to be many, many things quite different, because when we really push the whole concept of equality and equity to its furthest degree, we're going to find that women in their domestic relationships, in their household chores, women in the job world are going to have to really get out and face things. And I think many women are ready to do that. I think equality is going to make equal rights for men and women in the true sense of the word is going to mean many changes in our whole concept of child support. It's going to make a whole lot of differences in the whole matter of what it means to be a sexual partner with a male, not a piece of property, not one who has no control, as is true in some states, over a person's money and so forth, but it's going to be a whole rethinking of what it means to be a human being acting on one's own. And I don't think that anybody, even the legal experts, with all respect for Polly and others, have all of the answers, because much of this at this point I think has to be speculation as to what's going to happen, particularly in relation to the family, and there are going to be many changes in state laws.
Thank you. Just 1 minute, I'm afraid, for our last question.
I'm Carol Taylor, and I am a member of the Women's Unit of the Governor's Office. My question, I noticed on August 26th, the Women's Strike for Equality, there were about 20,000 women who marched down Fifth Avenue. And yesterday, I attended the opening of the New York City Commission on Human Rights hearings concerned with women's role in contemporary America. And there couldn't have been any more than 60 women there. My question is, how do you persuade women to become involved constructively rather than dramatically marching down Fifth Avenue in large numbers?
Well, yes, go ahead. And then very, very briefly, if you can.
I'm not sure that you mean to say, or if you do mean to say, I must dissent, rather than.
Well, in addition to.
In addition to, marching down Fifth Avenue made women visible and united and said something to the power structure of this United States. The rest is hard labor, constant work. You're very young, but you probably remember the Civil Rights Movement. Think about how the Civil Rights Movement became effective. 30 years ago, those of us who contested segregation were thrown into jail and nobody knew about it. We were individuals. 30 years later, you had thousands demonstrating in the streets. And for the first time since the Civil War, we got a Civil Rights Act.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we really have run out of time now and cannot have any more. Unfortunately, this has been a program, not unfortunately, to commemorate two very important events. One was the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, and the other was, 100 years ago from today, the founding of the YWCA of the city of New York.
All right, guys. That's pretty much it. I mean, after watching it for the second time, a lot of things were said on there. A lot of things that if you were able to make through this lengthier briefing of the stream, I commend you. Overall, my take over all this is that, and to let people know, that panel was full of women, a few black women and a whole bunch of non-black women. The whole premise of this is that it's always enough form of strategies of what benefits or what ways women could, I guess, more thrive in a society that was constructed for themselves. And the rights that we're getting now, and we're looking now in the present day, the complaints now that women are complaining about now, as gentlemen, women are complaining now about their position now in America in regards either they gotten what they wanted, which to work, pay the bills and stuff, and have an independent life, and that's cool. But now, what in result, most dudes nowadays, I'm not gonna deal with certain mentalities with certain modernization of women, and the disease is spreading globally, gentlemen, as you know. So at the end of the day, to the black woman, the professor, or I think she is professor, in the plight of the black race at the time, she did admit to a few things that, women's involvement of, women's rights and, and other things. But, in regards, everything was true about, to the degree of how the family structure was really constructed and somewhat disintegrate with the system. And we should be clear. The non-black women said it best that they should work together with other women, including black women. But black women don't benefit with this union with other groups of women. And that's something that the lady never did push back, which I find ironic. But back then, it was still somewhat new because that's been going on since the 60s, and this is like 1970. So we're looking at the like roughly 6 years after, women's feminism started to really be on its way in the mid 60s. So overall, I hope you got some out of this. Go back to this. I think it's very educational, and I hope you make some out of it and probably bring your own conclusions to this. I'm looking for in the comment section of this stream what your views and thoughts about it. Am I right or wrong? Have Black women really participate with these movements cause further harm to the Black community? Or is it, in general? And really, when I talk about Black women, we could say all forms, including the Black intelligentsia of our women in the society. So I'll leave it there. Links to follow me are found. You can follow me on Twitter at Chaos7. Add me a friend on Facebook, Eric Ray on Facebook. Join my Discord service. Join my Rumble handler, CRain23. And become a member of the Chaos Reign Show as well, guys. I would surely appreciate it. And all the links, if you want to follow me, will be in the description below. All right, that's it, guys. And make sure you give this video a like on your way in and on your way out. And thank you again. Until next time, the Chaos Reign.